will go through it again, sort of like we did in service, because we have made revisions, we've tightened it up. So this was supposed to be stapled with a heavy-duty stapler. A regular stapler won't do it, but they seem to have misplaced the heavy-duty stapler. So we are going to come back and put tabs on these for you. So if I could have some help getting this passed out to each person.
I need tissue. Thank you.
Oh, great. I'm on the Handbook.
This is my son's night project.
Wow. So this would be much better to have tabs
And this is for the
and
clipboard,
accessible.
just for the clipboard. So if you're next to somebody with a clipboard, great. Just for the clipboard, but I'm gonna go through it.
Thank you.
The articles, I got a plan about what all the articles and or change it. You gotta put it in the
Okay,
name.
so there are 3 spares that we just did.
I thought I'd do so. That makes sense. I was thinking, no, just have
Anybody
today.
want a spare just to look at?
You know, the guitar one might not have one.
I have that. One for the
All right.
dance. Yeah. Not the problem, is it?
Everybody got something to look at? Right. Pretend like we have a tab at the top that says emergency contacts. If you'll flip to that page, you'll see here that the sheriff, the ambulance, Jane and I's phone numbers are on here, including the school address and the school phone number. Because in an emergency, if you end up being the person who calls 911, do you have the school address memorized? Probably not. So that's why that's posted on this emergency contact sheet. Moving to the next page, this next set of instructions. We copied this, or I set it up so that your first page of your protocols would always be the facing page, not on the back side. So let's briefly go over, we've made some changes with the first aid protocols. One is, do you know what a serious or potentially life-threatening condition is? Well, we listed these. These are from OSHA. Unconscious, and we added, or has lost consciousness, even if briefly. So if you have a kid in the gym that bumps their head, knocks them out, they wake up immediately, do you say, oh, wow, are you okay? Or do we consider that a serious incident requiring medical attention? Yes. Yes.
Yeah, could be
Trouble
concussion.
breathing, chest pain or pressure, bleeding severely will have to be in your judgment. Has pressure or pain in the abdomen that does not go away, vomiting or passing blood, and seizures. Now, I'm not talking about somebody just irking. I'm talking, serious, violent vomiting. Seizures, severe headaches, slurred speech, appears to have been poisoned. That's interesting. Check the cleaning supplies.
Oh, thank you.
Has injury to head, neck, or back. Has possible broken bones. Those all are situations that require 911 call. The others are your typical, if you go down to 322, all the others are injuries that are deemed minor, meaning playground stuff, skin, knee, bloody nose, the typical day-to-day things that a school encounters. The others require a first responder and a second responder. So, let's imagine something happens out there, and I see Tracy over there. Go, Tracy! I yell at her, she comes over. There's 2 things that can happen. One is, I could be a real wimp and completely inadequate and say, I don't know anything about first aid, I can't handle this. She can substitute in and become the first responder. And then I become the second responder, which is really more of a helper. So you can switch roles, but once that person's in there, they never leave the victim, except when?
If they're alone.
If you're alone, and you don't have a phone, but you know you've got your phone in the car, you've got your phone in the classroom, or there's a phone outside the MPB door. If you're alone, you're going to have to leave your victim to make a 911 call if it's a serious or potentially life-threatening situation. Typically, the best way, of course, is if you do have another person and that person calls 911 and you stay with the victim and try to stabilize them the best you can. You know, you're a good Samaritan in Texas. You're not perceived as a medical professional. You have protection from liability. For example, if you kind of move them and that severed their spinal cord, well, that's unfortunate, but you're not a medical professional. Now, if a medical professional did it, it'd be something altogether different.
Dr. Rand,
Yes.
but that's only in case they're in danger.
Well, if somebody is serious or life-threatening injury, they would be in danger.
No, but I mean, if somebody is injured and you move them, like on the playground, you're not supposed to.
Yeah, but the Good Samaritan laws in Texas will protect you because it assumes you're an idiot. Basically, that you don't know not to move them. Right? Now, if it came out in the law case that you actually did have medical training, even first aid certification, you did that, then you're gonna be in trouble. But the average Joe is not going to be. So I don't want people not addressing an injury because you're afraid of being sued. That's what the whole Good Samaritan Act is about. But again, if you are a trained medical person, then you have to follow your ethical rules on how you handle it. The other thing that you learned in your Red Cross class was, do we breathe?
We don't have to. We don't have to.
CPR, they say don't do the breaths.
Don't do the birds.
So learn your staying alive song and do your compressions. They also say that for adults, 75% of adults, their heart is having an irregular beat that cannot be addressed by CPR. What does that mean? So you have to do. You're gonna have to go for the AED no matter what. That may mean you have to leave your victim to go get it, but they say you're just squishing the heart. You are not doing, in 75% of the cases, you are doing nothing to help that adult. Now children, it's just a flip-flop of the statistics. Most children benefit from CPR.
Yep.
So do CPR with a child, get an AED for an adult. All right, next page. Second responder. Just using your common sense, what does second responder do? They make the phone call. They keep people back from the scene because people are always nosy and wanting to get involved with a situation, and your job is to keep them away or retrieve medical supplies, get perhaps the first aid kit. You can also be the person that notifies the office, and it's the office that notifies the family. With the cell phones and all of that going on now, I think that companies, schools, organizations have a problem with employees kind of be vigilantes on their own because they have phone access. But really the chain of command is that you get it to the office notifies. Now if you're here by yourself, that would be an exception, right? We have a new incident report. We use it for recess, for lunch, for athletics, for everything. They refer to this list and will tell you what to do step by step, unlike the general form that we have now. Okay. First aid kits, we are having those inspected to make sure that all of these OSHA elements are in those. And we're also, we have a traveling kit. So if you go on a field trip, you have to get the traveling kit if you're the head chaperone. Yes.
Did we tell them where all the first aid kits are?
First aid kits are in just two places, the upper office, well, three places, the upper office, elementary office, and athletics office. And then we'll have a traveling kit, and we haven't decided where we're gonna keep that. Probably Katana's office, since she's the one that does the field trip forms for you. So that would be a trigger for her to go, oh, I gotta make sure such and such gets a first aid traveling kit. All right. Moving on to the next page. General evacuation plan. Steve does field trips to the crime lab. He's the head chaperone, so Steve will be the one that has the first aid kit. The lead chaperone. Cheryl Larson's sixth grade class goes to the stadium. She's gonna be the one that has it in her.
But we need to tell somebody for Stuco when we go to Stuco, because we could use that for first aid handbook. To tell people.
That would be a good idea. That would be considered a school sponsor. Okay, the next thing that would be useful to you is a tornado emergency plan. We added a sentence here relating to the kind of vigilante,
Where's that at?
page 11, the tornado in big letters. You are not the storm watcher. The office is a storm watcher. What happens sometimes in the past is that we've had teachers, instead of teaching, on their computers and at the window with their phone, checking the storms, even taking phone calls. No. You are the recipient of our direction. So we will keep track. We both have both the weather radios and we have the internet, obviously. And we will let you know if you need to take action. And we'll even inform you if there's a watch of concern for our area so that you'll be aware that first of all, we're on top of it. And secondly, that we're watching it. And then we'll be the ones that notify you over the PA system for the tornado warning, which means take action. Let's see. We will not be putting students in the VOTEC side, the annex of MPB, because statistically storms come from that direction. So we were told that part of MPB probably won't exist, meaning if you're in that part of MPB, you won't exist. So we will want you on the concession kitchen side of MPB if you're stranded in that building. Believe it or not, this building is the safer building. Upper school is less safe, even though it's further in a trajectory because it's older. Elementary, I don't know.
We'd be flying up in the tornado. This is very common. Won't tell the kids though.
Oops, I forgot something important. Page 9.
Across the gym.
See it. Page 9, you'll see this box. 3 rows. It talks about rally points. The primary rally point when we evacuate is the recreation field south of MPB. That's where you went for the fire drill last week or 2 weeks ago. The secondary rally point would be to go even farther to the baseball field area. And we'll talk a little more about school shooters and that sort of thing, because that treat area on the very far part of the baseball field, if you're outside, is probably the safest place to be. The alternative rally point would be the wooded area behind this building over here, sort of behind the church, where we've cleared that area. Okay, sorry, I forgot to say that. Okay, flip to severe storm and power outages. The most likely result of a severe storm power outage situation is going to be hail damage to your car. Nothing to be done about it. By the way, I'll park mine under the front porch first. You think I haven't had that car in that front porch before? I both did it. We had 2 cars under there one time. Anyway, but the other likely result is a loss of utilities. And I don't know if anyone else, but my house is out of utilities off and on during storms all the time. The thing that's going to happen when those lights go out is what? Your kids are going to go crazy. But there's no reason to do that. You don't need to be leaving the building, certainly. You just need to stay in the building. Our real risk is tornado, not storm. These buildings are rated for 90-mile-an-hour winds. This building. I think it's 80 in the upper school. That's what I remember. Cheryl, does that sound right?
I haven't heard the
Well, they rate your buildings. Metal buildings have to be what's called engineered,
Yeah.
or I can't even get a building permit here. And so the gym is fabulous, this building is fabulous, elementary, that was fine. Upper school has like 10 less than the others. So as far as the going off and Toto and all of that, you're not gonna have that happen.
flashlight, if it's that dark.
Yeah, you've got flashlights. Okay, so, just stay in your room. Toilets will flush when electricity's out. Those of you that don't know much about plumbing, they still work. Okay, fires. We already did a fire drill. You would go to the main rally point just like you did. We had a few little glitches, but overall that fire drill went fine. Let's talk about candles, open flames. Steve and Daryl are the only ones that I'm aware of, and Julie, that might be working with open flame as part of science. That could happen. But they're also doing that with precautions in place to handle that kind of situation. We should not be using candles and open flames in any other classroom. If for some reason you need to do a special project, just run it past the office. You may not have candles lit in your classroom. What you can have, if you want Scentsy, is you can have a plug-in candle warmer, which means there's no open flame, it just sets on a little hot plate type thing, and then, you know, it melts. But you need to be turning those off and unplugging those every day. I put mine on a timer, a little timer thing that turns mine on and off so that I don't have to deal with it being on at night. So you're allowed to have that. You're also allowed to have twinkle lights and all the things you want, but those have to be turned off. Listen, it's all we can do at the end of the day for Jane and I, Tracy, Christina, Laura, whoever's here late, to go around and make sure all the doors are locked without going in every classroom and turning off your lamps and your twinkle lights and your candle thingy doodles and all of that. So please do that yourself. And if you say that you only teach 5 periods in your class and you're all over the place for electives, there's 2 options. One is you turn it off before you leave after 5th period or when you leave. Or when you go back to your room to get your purse and such, that you turn it off at that time. But just make it your responsibility. Yes, ma'am?
Do you want computers on or off at night?
You don't have to turn the computers off, although Mr. Phillips would prefer for you to, because a restart cleans it up.
No, he wants them stayed on. He wants them on.
But the monitor. You can turn the
Monitors have to be turned off. But I do know that he does not want you keeping your computers on day in and day out and day in and day out because what is it, RAM builds up. And when you restart the computer, it'll clean it up.
So a punch line was leave it on, but turn it off on occasion.
Turn
On the
off the
weekend.
monitor. Maybe the weekend.
On the weekend. So turn it off on Thursday or Friday.
So if somebody's using it on Friday,
Okay. We are at no smoking, no tobacco, no vape.
Thank
Campus.
God.
There is no area on this entire campus, parking lots included, that are smoke permitted. Now, we're aware that visitors and others may smoke in a parking lot. We do have some parents that we've seen out there. We're making it that way. It was really interesting, when we went to OSU college campus with Sarah, they are a tobacco-free, smoke-free, everything-free campus, which was wow, I was surprised. But I am not gonna go to the parking lot to Mr. Whoever and say, put that cigarette away. But we can have the postings, which we do, that's no smoking and no tobacco. We get our fire extinguishers inspected, so you don't have to worry about that. Steve showed us an in-service how to use a fire extinguisher. Anybody need to see that again? Everybody to pick one up and not think about it.
Pulling you up. Shoot.
Pull the point.
That's all I need to know.
And when you're using a fire extinguisher, what is the key? Where do you point the fire extinguisher?
Base.
At the base of the fire, toward the bottom of the fire, where the source is. All right, you may have on page 15 what is classified as a small fire. You may think that you can handle it, but we call 911 anyway. Because small fires may look like they're out, but they may actually have gotten into the wall. patrol out here checking to make sure we're safe, and I'm sure you do too. So small or large, 911 gets called. How much time? I might be able to do more than I thought. Page 16. Terrorism and intruder lockdown. This is not just Alice. There's two things here. One is a bomb or a bomb threat. Anybody just instinctually know what you would do? Run! No.
That's what I do.
Generally, okay, maybe in all cases, bombs are placed there by someone with intent. And they want to make that intent known. And the most common way they make that intent known is they call. You expelled me 5 years ago. I really hate going. I want to blow up your school, so there's a bomb in a secret place on your campus. Okay, if you take that call, what do you need to do?
Name and number.
Name and number would be nice, Julie. Yeah. But what do you do? They have an axe to grind. They've called you. They want to talk about it. That is the typical profile of somebody who's playing bomb, is they want to talk about it. They're angry. They want to spew at you. Keep them talking. And in the course of conversation, see if you can say, you went to school here? See, that's what I'd say. You went to school here? I don't remember your voice. When were you here? Okay, you just look for anything and everything you can to identify who this person is, whether it's a male or a female. About how old the person sounds. We can determine when they were actually here. Well, we had people, don't you know we have, this is a lie. We have security guards 24/7 and they didn't see you enter any of the buildings. Or, oh yes, we saw you on our security camera. Are you really sure you want to go through this? There's all kinds of things you can do to get them to get upset, to talk, because they've already done it. So getting them upset on the phone is not going to make it any more dangerous. So, they actually, in videos, have seen people tell them where their address is.
What does it look like?
So you live in Terrell? Yes.
They really tell me.
You know, the stupidest criminals things, have you ever seen those? Okay, well, they do things. So, anyway, try to get as much information as you can and get it to the administrative school.
What's your address?
All right, there are 2 terroristic threats that we need to worry about on campus. We went through this last week in admin. 2. One is an approaching or a potentially approaching threat. So the situation in Terrell, North Terrell, where there were guns involved, where we got the message that the situation might go mobile, that's when we did the lockdown as a precautionary measure because that threat may be mobile and moving our direction. Okay, that's one situation. What would we do? Close our gates, right? So that's a different thing than if you have an on-campus one. So we close the gates. We have already met with students who drive. They know that if they come to closed gates, they're to go to Poetry Postal. That's their staging area. That's their rally point. And we will be in communication with Poetry Postal when it's safe. Teachers, if you leave for lunch and find a closed gate, you're not opening it. Where do you go? Poetry Postal. So parents, we're going to have to get that out to parents, but if they come and the gates are locked, they can go to Poetry Postal. There's plenty of room, and that would be a place for us to have a single communication point. And then we lock down campus, just like we did the other day. Lock down campus. And wait further instructions. Do not get on your phones, like Melissa said, don't get on Facebook. Don't go that. Wait for us to get in touch with you about what you should or should not be doing next.
So who's undogging the doors of the buildings if we lock down?
Each person, each admin person
Everybody
has
has
their
to
own
do that.
responsibility. Yeah.
Okay.
And even Julie Cater,
I
she's
guess,
one of
yeah.
our gate people.
Okay.
So certain people have jobs and we also have a backup person for each job. Christina's just gonna sit at the front desk and wait to get shot.
If you don't know about having a
For a
job,
taser.
then you don't. That means you stay
You
put
just
where
see
it
it,
is.
you know, she's like Wonder Woman. She could be come down and they could come through the front door and she go, and they go,
Well, we almost use one other little option would be
you're not gonna be able to do gates, you're not gonna be
No,
able
but
to
there
probably
should be a
get the buildings
meeting
locked
place
down.
if there's few, you know what I mean?
The meeting place would be Cheryl Larson's classroom, locked and locked down, and she waits in the
But you go in a
classroom.
building.
But grab kids, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
You
There's
just go to
always
your
people hanging around.
closest lockdown position, because you may be in the library with your kids doing story time with Angie. You may not actually be in the classroom. You have to be prepared to come in the Bill's room, or wherever the closest lockdown location would be. But that's the next section. Okay, because approaching campus is different.
Right.
If we have someone actually on the campus, are we gonna lock the gates? No, we're not gonna lock the gates because we want law enforcement to have ready access to the campus. However, we are getting a strobe light installed as part of our peril alarm system, so that anyone that comes to campus that sees the strobe going off at the front of campus knows we're in an emergency. Okay, so say Shannon's coming to teach her class in the afternoon. We've got the gates open waiting for law enforcement, we're all locked down. She pulls the parking lot. Where is everybody? Oh, the strobe! Oh, get back in my car. Leave before it's postal. That would be the best thing to do.
Yes.
Okay. So flipping to page 17. This is extremely hard to write because so much of what happens in Alice is your judgment. Do you recall in your training that lockdown may not be your end all? I think what I mentioned to you last time is we're locked down in this classroom and the perpetrator comes into this building and is shooting. The best, the best thing to do is go out that door. But it's hard for me to write that here because I can't anticipate every single circumstance. You're gonna have to use judgment as the adult in charge and think, where's the safest, what is the safest strategy for me and my students? So under Alice Alert, it's identifying a threat on campus. There are two ways you could be aware of a threat on campus. You see it yourself. You're in the parking lot, you see somebody with a gun that you don't recognize. That would be you identifying a threat. Hearing gunshots would be another threat. We are not adding rifle marksmanship to our electives program, so you don't have to worry about that. Another way would be through the Sycamore alert system, which we tried the other day. Scared some of you to death.
That's a nice alarm when you're looking at videos.
So, since last week when I asked you to go do your instant notification and check that box, has everybody done that so we can actually do a full drill on it?
I have, but I don't have.
Yeah, I think these are
Because, you know,
elected
you don't have a speaker, you won't hear it, you'll just see it. And keep in mind, Sycamore, alert is not foolproof because David has your computers, timing out. And it will not go past a timeout on the outside of the computer, so we recognize that. So you're gonna have that and a PA, if we can manage both. PA is gonna be our number one, Sycamore alert would be our second one. So the threat has been identified. You know, Cheryl Larson runs in and goes, there's this crazy guy in the parking lot. He's got a gun. I don't know what kind of gun it is. It's huge, and he looks ticked off. He's heading toward the gym. That would be a threat identified to me. I will direct someone with me to call law enforcement, and then I will do, because what I've got to do is protect you guys. For law enforcement's our second phone call. We notify you. And according to Alice training, if you recall, it says we're not going to go into all kinds of weird code words. Code words they have determined do not work. Because you have substitute teachers, you have teachers in a panic that don't recall it. You just say, we have a man in camo, black boots, 2 guns, heading toward the gym. He's dangerous. Lock down immediately. Take precautions. It's safe, right? And then we would keep talking to you. What if that person doesn't end up going to the gym, but they do a U-turn and head toward Decade? We've been notified that the perpetrator is heading toward Decade. Okay? So they want us to keep communicating with you with as many details as we can, because heck, the person knows that you know. So if they do that, you might as well tell everybody everything you know so that you can be more prepared. lockdown part, we've talked about and done. We've done lockdown drills. So I'm not gonna go through that. The only thing that you need to recall is when you're in a lockdown, you need to prepare for your countermeasures. You may not use them, but you need to be prepared for them. Question, do you ever, because you're packing, do you ever go look for the perpetrator? Andy, go get your guns. No.
I'm not packing.
You're always dealing with your own safety and your kids' safety. And if you evacuate, do you take stuff with you?
No.
One thing.
Yes, you do.
Your clipboard. That's your
Red
clipboard, not
clipboard.
your purse. If you can bring a cell phone and do it quickly, that will be an advantage.
Take your clipboard.
If you can have a cell phone, because you could be hiding in the woods and you could call 911 and say, I'm the 6th grade class, the 6th grade class is safe, we're in the trees on the south side of the baseball field. And they will record that, so that they can account for where everyone is. Okay.
You tell me to put intercoms on.
Well, we have speakers outside, but we're gonna put bigger ones out there so that they can hear all the way to the baseball field, kind of a stadium speaker that direction. That's one of our plans. Outside, they want us to go inside, but make sure you go to the safe spot. So if you're gonna go in the gym, Chris Brown knows that they're gonna go into those classrooms. So in tornadoes, you go to this end, and lockdown, you go to that end. Okay. If you're inside, okay, Alice inform. What do you think that means, those of you that have done training?
Let somebody know.
Means you're responsible for being part of the information system. So if you are in decade and hear gunshots in this building, it would be helpful if we knew about it. So you have your emergency list where you can call us. You can even tell the 911 operator. Some of them will just stay on the phone with you the entire incident. They don't have to get off your phone. And you could say, it's in my building, I'm in the decade building, that's the building at the back of campus. If you ended up doing countermeasures and there was a gun involved and the gun is on the floor, what do you do? Put it in the trash can. Their recommendation is to put it in the trash can. Why?
So that you're not prepared.
So you don't have a gun in your hand when they come in.
Right, you just leave it in the trash can, and when law enforcement comes, you just say, gun in trash can. But you're not holding it, students aren't trying to grab it. If there is no trash can, because, I don't know, whatever reason, put it in a box. There's a box right here, just put it in a box. I do want to warn those of you that do have concealed to carry licenses. You need to be very, very cautious about having your gun out. First of all, you've got students, you've got people in a panic. You are not trained law enforcement officer, and you can be perceived as dangerous and get shot yourself. So the advice we received was is if they're packing, they need to keep it packed. Unless you're just in a phase with deadly force, in which case do whatever you need to do. Okay, so that's counter. Laura is making bright green, like Shannon's shirt, bright green, all clear, laminated sheets with a line for a date that they can be slid under the door, or again, law enforcement credentials under the door, and that would be an all clear. And those are only going to be with our office clipboards. They won't be on yours. So nobody knows. Okay, so we almost finished that. Let me see. Evacuate, we've already talked about, and going to the rally points. What do we got here? So, we'll talk, starting with page 20, on office and classroom safety. Next. Tomorrow, I'll come to your rooms. I'll go to your, let's meet in here. And, yeah, right.
In my room, because there's not room.
Or the teacher's lunch. Yeah, we'll just do that.
Where are we going?
Probably both places, we'll just meet your teacher's
It
lounge.
depends which ledge you have.